Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 9 quarterback start or sit decisions. Inside of today's video, I'll be going in depth into every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I think you should start or sit the quarterbacks in all of those games. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Another quick note, real quick, before we get on into things, there are a bunch of teams on bye this week. The Cleveland Browns, the Dallas Cowboys, the Denver Broncos, the New York Football Giants, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the San Francisco 49ers. So this is kind of like a bye-apocalypse. So your quarterback choices this week might be a little bit more suspect. And as well, I would also like to ask real quick, if you have any questions about week 9, never hesitate but to ask down below in the comment section. I love to talk to you guys down there. So without further ado, let's get into the video. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the Philadelphia Eagles at the Houston Texans. Through the first 8 games of the season, it has become incredibly obvious that Jalen Hurts is a must-start quarterback every single week, despite the matchup. Now, this week, he gets the Houston Texans, which is one of the easiest matchups for a quarterback. I fully expect for Jalen Hurts to absolutely skull-fuck the Houston Texans defense, and would not be surprised at all if at the end of the week, Jalen Hurts was the #1 quarterback for week number 9. Davis Mills, has been just about all right all season long. He hasn't really done anything special. This week he gets the Philadelphia Eagles, and if there ever was a 4-leaf clover stuck in his shoe or something that he wants to whip out and have a big game, it probably wouldn't even work up against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. Next up, we move to the beginning of the Sunday slate with the LA Chargers at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Marcus Mariota last week had thrown the most passing attempts he has thrown all year long. Prior to that, it seemed like head coach of the team, Arthur Smith, did not have enough trust in Marcus Mariota to actually let him cook, because just the week before last week, in week number 7, the Falcons were getting the ever-living shit beat out of them, and even though they were down by roughly a zillion points, they just started running the ball with Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley instead of trying to actually pass, because it really did appear that they did not trust Marcus Mariota. But if last week up against the Panthers is what is going to happen going forward, then Marcus Mariota, because of such strong rushing upside, honestly has the upside to be a top 10 quarterback in any given week. And going up against the LA Chargers, whose defense has been very underwhelming, and their offense also a little bit underwhelming, could force this game to be a tit-for-tat high-scoring affair. Now, maybe the Atlanta Falcons go back to that same bullshit that they were on, where they're just running the ball a million times. But if they don't, Marcus Mariota has some serious upside. I know Justin Herbert, the pervert, has not been the guy that we saw through the first 2 years of his career. People make the excuse that the wide receivers have been banged up, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, though, this week they get the Falcons, and the Falcons defense is not very good at all. So I like a bounce back spot here for Justin Herbert, the pervert, even without Mike Williams. Next matchup here, we got the Miami Dolphins at the Chicago Bears. Now, I am slightly worried about this matchup because there are reports right now that on Sunday there might be some serious wind in this game. So this is something that we'll have to monitor all the way up until kickoff on Sunday. If the wind is very serious, as someone who is a Dolphins fan and has watched Tua Tagovailoa play in these weird conditions, Tua is not the best in the wind in the past. Maybe this year he's figured everything out, because this year the guy looks fucking incredible throwing the football. So I'm going to try to take the win narrative out of it, because I'm only recording this on Tuesday night. You're seeing this on Wednesday. We don't necessarily know exactly what the win scenario is going to look like. If there ends up being no wind in this matchup, I fully expect Tua Tagovailoa to cut the Chicago Bears defense up Jeffrey Dahmer style. So I love this matchup for Tua. He just hung his nuts all over the face of the Detroit Lions. I think he's going to do the same thing in this matchup up against the Bears. Justin Fields has looked incredible for the last 3-4 games. He's been great for fantasy football. It really feels like the offense is finally catering themselves towards his skill set. The team just traded for Chase Claypool, which gives some even more weapons to Justin Fields. Now, I don't think this makes Chase Claypool fantasy relevant. I don't think it helps out Darnell Mooney. If anything, it might fucking hurt Darnell Mooney. But at the end of the day, this makes me even more comfortable playing Justin Fields in this spot. Next up, we move to the Carolina Panthers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty went up against the Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football. And on Halloween, things got real spooky because Joe Burrow was seeing ghosts. Joe Burrow shit the bed in prime time. Now, ultimately, after those garbage time touchdowns, Burrow doesn't have the worst fantasy day. But that was bad. That's not what you like to see, because without Jamar Chase there, that offense looked like they lost their fucking mind, like the Headless Horseman. They looked like they had no idea what they were doing. Now this week, they get the Panthers defense. So here's the bounce back spot for Mr. Joe Shiesty. I like him in this matchup. PJ Walker threw an absolute fucking laser to DJ Moore at the end of that game, or the end of regulation, up against the Atlanta Falcons. PJ Walker has some legitimate skill. I will give him that, but am I comfortable having my fantasy week rely on PJ Walker? The answer is no. Next up, we got the Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions. Now, despite the fact that the Packers are kind of a disaster this year, now, it's not like they have just one win or something, and they look like absolute fucking disasters every Sunday, like a dumpster fire. They don't look the best. Even Aaron Rodgers himself hasn't really said they look the best, but, you know, did we really expect a great game up against the Bills? They were either 10.5 underdogs or 11-point underdogs. They were projected to get the dog shit beat out of them, and they kind of did, except for the fact that Josh Allen kind of let them stay in the game by throwing a couple of picks. But even with that said, even with the Green Bay Packers struggling, even with the wide receivers over there seemingly having zero hands, Aaron Rodgers has still been playing pretty decent. The Lions defense is atrocious. The Lions, actually, in my opinion, have the worst defense in the NFL. We just saw Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill take a dump on the chest of that defense. I expect Aaron Rodgers to have a pretty solid showing here. Typically, Aaron Rodgers plays excellent up against the Packers. The Packers defense has definitely been suspect this season. Not as good as I thought they would be when we entered into the season all the way in week number 1. Jared Goff has been pretty reliable for fantasy football outside of around 2 games this season. He started off strong, then he had a bad game up against the Patriots, then they had the bye week, and he came out slow the week after that. But up against the Dolphins, despite the fact that they blew a 14-0 lead to start off the game, Jared Goff still looked pretty good there, and I think he gets it done ultimately up against the Packers. He's not an upper echelon start, but he's definitely a guy that I would be fine putting in my lineup. Next up, we move to the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville. Derek Carr had an ultimate bad performance last week. And when I mean a bad performance, I'm talking about this dude. I know I make jokes like, oh, this guy's blind. He's like Stevie Wonder in the pocket. This is even worse. This was even worse. Derek Carr was just awful. Downright atrocious. That might have been one of the worst quarterback performances I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure they didn't even ever cross midfield until the 4th quarter of the game. The Las Vegas Raiders got a train ran on them, and the Red Rifle Andy Dalton was the fucking captain of the train, okay? Derek Carr got his shit legitimately pushed in. That was an all-time bad game. And Devontae Adams also dropping like 1 point. Man, oh man, if you started any Raiders last week aside from Josh Jacobs, who scored like 9-10 points, which isn't awful, like he kind of escaped that catastrophe, it was really bad. The Jaguars defense didn't look great, and they haven't looked great since the start of the season. So I think we got a bounce back spot for Derek Carr. And then for the Jaguars, we got Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has been pretty hit or miss. He's had some solid games. He's had some really down games. Last week was not the best up against the Broncos in London. I think, though, because of the fact that he went up against the Broncos, I'm not going to put some crazy blame on him, because with Bradley Chubb and all these pieces, the Broncos legitimately had one of the best defenses in the National Football League. the Raiders, again, just got skull-fucked by the Saints. At the end of the day, neither Carr or Trevor Lawrence are must-start quarterbacks, but with so many teams on bye, again, the Browns, the Cowboys, Broncos, Giants, Steelers, 49ers, you might be down bad this week at quarterback. So some of the guys that, if it was a full slate of games, no one was on bye, maybe they probably wouldn't be starts, but this week, because of so many teams on bye, they end up making the cut. And in reality, can Derek Carr really be that bad again? I don't think so. Before we move on into the next game here, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our sponsor over at BetMGM, and they have a no-brainer offer for you guys tonight. This offer, I believe, is expiring relatively soon, so you want to take advantage of it before it disappears, like Devontae Adams disappeared in that game last week up against the Saints. So if you bet $10 on any pre-game NBA money line tonight in the NBA, using the link in the video description if you are a new user, if you place $10 on a pregame NBA moneyline bet, you'll receive $200 in free bets if anyone hits a three-pointer in the NBA tonight, which might happen in the first 5 seconds of the first game tonight. Again, this is a freebie. It is a no-brainer. It is guaranteed to happen. All you got to do is bet $10 on any pregame NBA moneyline bet. The bet doesn't even have to hit, and you'll receive $200 of free bets. You might be thinking, Nick, I don't like the NBA. Well, that's okay, because again, even if your wager loses, you'll still get the $200 in free bets, and you don't have to bet the $200 in free bets on the NBA. You can bet on the NFL, MLB, PGA, NHL, anything you want. I assume you're going to bet on the NFL because you're watching this video, but you never know. You, the viewer, might be a soccer fanatic. You can bet it on that as well. So make sure you guys check that out. Link in the video description down below. Again, it's a no-brainer. You're just giving yourself $200 in free bets for $10. Make sure you take advantage of that if you are new to betting on BetMGM. Next up, we move to the Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. Now, this game, in terms of the quarterback position, is an absolute fucking snooze fest. This might be a battle of the running backs, Jonathan Taylor versus Ramondre Stevenson. Sam Ehlinger looked pretty meh last week up against the Commanders, a defense that he probably could have taken advantage of. He did not have a very solid showing. Mac Jones didn't look good either up against the Jets. He threw a pick six that ended up getting called back because one of the Jets' defensive players is such a fucking numbskull that he roughs Mac Jones way after. Like, normally I hate roughing the passer. Most of the time roughing the passer gets called, it makes no sense. There was actually zero roughing the passer. What could the player have done who laid out the quarterback? In this scenario, Mac Jones has thrown the ball, and 2 seconds later, this dense motherfucker just smacks up Mac Jones. I don't like Mac Jones. He seems like a dirty player himself, but why would you do that? What an idiot that Jets guy is. But at the end of the day here, Mac Jones, Sam Ehlinger, neither of them move the needle for me. Next up, we got the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills at the New York Jumbo Jets. And you guessed it, Josh Allen is a start. Who would have known? Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills right now feel like the second or number one best team in the NFL. Josh Allen is playing like the top quarterback in the fucking universe right now. The Jets defense. But Nick, the Jets, this is the new Jets. Come on, man. Do you really think that? Do you really think the Buffalo Bills aren't going to stomp all over little Sauce Gardner? Come on, man. Come on, man. Josh Allen is going to eat the Jets defense up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Zach Wilson looked pretty good to start off the game. He was looking pretty reliable. It's like, ooh, maybe this is the new Zach Wilson we've never seen before. Maybe this pass-heavier offense because Breece Hall's hurt. Zach Wilson's going to benefit from this. Zach Wilson looks good. Nope. Zach Wilson sells the game for them up against the Patriots. You hate to see it. There's no way you can trust Zach Wilson. The Bills' defense is incredible, and they're even more healthy now. Next up, we got a revenge game for Kirk Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings at the Washington Commanders. Anytime Kirk Cousins is playing at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, even 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I throw him in my lineup. The only time I am ever unsure about Kirk Cousins is at night, because Kirk Cousins is either super sleepy or he's afraid of the dark or something, because this guy sucks ass at playing football, at being the quarterback in primetime. We saw it against the Eagles. But outside of that game, Kirk Cousins has been relatively sharp. Now they add TJ Hawkinson as a weapon. I'm not too sure how much he will have an impact on the game this week because he recently got traded, but that is a positive for Cousins going forward. The Commanders' defense just really isn't all that sharp, so I like Kirk Cousins in this spot. Taylor Heineke is a sneaky start if you are in a deeper league, definitely a 2-quarterback league. I would definitely consider starting Taylor Heineke, and I'd almost say he's a must-start quarterback quarterback in a 2-quarterback league. Now, Taylor Heinicke has the boom-bust factor like really no other quarterback in the NFL. I think of him a lot like Ryan Fitzpatrick. When Taylor Heinicke gets hot, you get that Heinicke magic where he points deep down the field to Terry McLaurin. He does a fucking 360 like he's Kyler Murray playing Call of Duty, and he heaves that fucker down the field, and Terry McLaurin somehow catches it. Terry McLaurin in contested catches might be one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen in contested catches, because it seems like every single time this motherfucker catches the ball, the shit is contested. I dropped my phone moving so aggressively, but it is what it is. Taylor Heinicke. In deeper leagues, I like him, but ultimately he does not make the cut as a start, but he is close to being a start. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals, and I've talked about this game ad nauseum. I am incredibly worried about this matchup. I am shitting my pants at this matchup because this is a division matchup, and last time we saw these two teams play, it was incredibly low scoring. Now, this time, could they come out guns a-fucking blazing, go tit for tat, Rocky Balboa style? Maybe. And honestly, despite the fact that both of these teams don't really have good defenses, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a lower scoring game. With that said, it's basically impossible to bench Kyler Murray and Geno Smith because they've been pretty decent all year. But I will give you some caution right now that I don't have Kyler ranked as high as normal. Same thing goes with Geno Smith. I am playing this scenario very cautiously. I still think they could both be decent because they both have rushing upside. So they could still have good games or decent games even if this ends up being low scoring, but I will again note that I do think this might end up being low scoring. And now that I've said this, I've talked about it in so many videos, it's going to be like 42-37 or some crazy fucking score in this game. Next up, we got the Rams at the Buccaneers, the fraud teams, I would say, the battle of the frauds, the BOTF battle of the frauds. Tampa Bay Tom Brady, not great this year, pal. Not looking the best. Looked all right in primetime up against the Ravens. They lost, but he still looked decent for fantasy football. Again, not the best real-life performance, but for fantasy, he was fine. The Rams defense has been not what they were last year. The Rams defense is not locking very many people down. So I think Tom has a decent game. I hope, because in reality, the pendulum for Tom Brady has really swung in the negative direction. Like, for the first couple of weeks, I can make all of these excuses. I'm not some Tom Brady fucking fanboy. I'm not gawking metaphorically Tom Brady. But look, like, you could always talk yourself into, look, for years people have said he's going to be washed. He's going to be just fine. Give it a couple of weeks. But now we're in week fucking 9, okay? It's not been a couple of weeks. It's been 8 weeks already we've seen. So, like, let's be honest, like, Tom Brady's not an upper echelon start. Matthew Stafford, like, I don't know if it's him, if it's the offensive line. I don't know what it is. Cooper Kupp might play. He might not play. If Cooper Kupp doesn't play, there's no way in hell you can start Matthew Stafford. Now, the Buccaneers defense has not been what it was last season either, so maybe this is the game for Matt Stafford, but in my opinion, I'd rather just leave him on the bench, and in a lot of scenarios, you could just cut him. Next up, we got the Titans at the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Patrick Mahomes is a must start every single week. It doesn't matter which defense he's fucking playing. You just close your eyes, throw him into your lineup, must start every single week. The Titans defense has been pretty okay, but I still think you got to start Mahomes, obviously, as a top 5, top 3 option. Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis might play as well. This doesn't seem like something that's necessarily a lock for either of them to be the starting guy. Now, obviously, I think even if Ryan Tannehill was on a peg leg last week, like he's a fucking pirate, they would have beaten the Texans. All they did was snap the ball, hand it to Derrick Henry, and you win, because Derrick Henry literally owns the Houston Texans organization. This guy is just unreal against the Texans. He literally might be a part owner of the team. But Tannehill, without the weapons, like a funny stat this year, A.J. Brown has more receiving yards than the whole Titans wide receiver core. Very funny. Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis. No. Next up, we got the final game here. We got Monday Night Football between Lamar Jackson and the Ginger Ninja, the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. Lamar Jackson, let's be honest, it's been a tale of kind of 2 seasons. To start off the year, Lamar Jackson was on fire, NBA Jam style. Lamar Jackson was taking deuces on these other teams. Lamar Jackson was looking amazing. He was looking like the fucking MVP of the NFL. The last couple of weeks, not so much. Now, am I quick to just throw Lamar in the ditch, fucking have him dig himself a grave and die in the corner? No, I still think Lamar's good. I don't think the Saints defense is as good as they showed last week against the Las Vegas Raiders. So I like that. Raggy? That kind of sounded like fucking Scooby instead of what I was trying to do. But you get what I'm saying. I'm not afraid of keeping the train up with Lamar Jackson. If he doesn't perform here, then I'm going to start to get worried. But I ultimately think he bounces back here. Andy Dalton has just been the definition of decent. Like, he had a really good game against the Cardinals, but outside of that, he's been pretty reliable. He's not necessarily a guy that I see being like a top 8 quarterback this week, but if he ended the week as quarterback 13, would I be surprised at all? The answer is fuck no, baby. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, as well as that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And if you have any questions for week number 9, please make sure that you ask down below in the comment section or in the Discord link in the video description and in the pinned comment. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye.